So, have you ever taken to nature, like hike, explore, to try something new? What if the worst thing ever happened to you? What if you totally disappeared without a trace? It could happen in the most unexpected place. If you're not aware of what's under your feet, you never know. Stay with us today and find out where this scary place is.
Welcome to High Strangeness, where we ask questions and explore all that is strange and unexpected in our reality.
Hey, welcome to High Strangeness. I'm Tony, and this is a place where we talk about all things strange and or unexpected. Today, we have Brett Hook back on the show with us today, who is our resident outdoors explorer, and I'm glad to have him on. And a little later today, we're going to talk about a few other things, but we're going to start talking about a really crazy place that we ran across. I ran across it and shared with him, and I want to get his thoughts on it. So before we get into that, though, my friend, how's it going, man? How are you doing?
Good. How's it going on your end?
Good. I'm glad to get with you again. I know that we're getting in the last half of 2025, and I know just from some of your pictures and some of your videos that you've been out and about doing some cool stuff. And so we'll get into some of that either in this episode or the other one.
Sure.
But first of all, I want to talk about this really crazy place, right? I mean, when we do exploring, and I'm saying we as in you, other people that do it, because I don't explore much past my backyard, you run across weird things sometimes, and it's really strange what you come across. I want to ask you though, before we even get into all that, I know you did a trip not too long ago to the Pacific Northwest, and you did some stuff. Did you get any outdoorsy stuff in while you were out there? Did you have any fun? I know you went for a game or something, a ball game a while back. So anything, were you able to get any extra things that you like to do while you're out there? Some of your
No, I
visits.
mean, yes, I went to, see the Mariners play the Cleveland Guardians, but that was part of the trip, of course, but the real reason why I was there was to explore. Washington, Oregon are beautiful states, and what they're really well known for are like waterfalls.
Mm.
And what's funny is you can go on the you can go on the All Trails app and you can and that's the All Trails app is really great for finding things like that. You can literally look in each state to see if you wanted to do like a waterfall hike, for example. And like in Utah, supposedly there's like 250. Nevada, there's like 35. But up in
Mm.
that area, you're talking about 5 to 600. So you could just be there
Wow.
and that's all you could do. So I knew that, but I didn't want to just do that. I wanted to diversify the places that I went. I didn't want them all to be waterfalls. I wanted things that are like unique to, the state of Washington, of course. There's an art. So I like exploring nature and hiking, but I also like unique things that you can find out there. So I'll give you an example. There's an artist. His name is Thomas Dambo. He's out of I don't know if he's out of, he's in Europe. I don't know if he's in the Netherlands or Sweden. He's
Mm.
in one of those countries. And what he does is he creates these trolls. And these trolls will have like different themes and different personalities and stuff like that. Well, up in Washington, they have five of them, and two of them are on two separate islands together, and then three of them are kind of like the surrounding Seattle areas. So previous trips, I was able to knock out all four of them, but this past trip, I was able to knock out the final one that I was looking for.
Oh,
So
nice.
it was kind of cool in a way. It was kind of like a scavenger hunt without being a scavenger hunt. Like he has some up in Minnesota, and they literally are a scavenger hunt. He has like
Mm-hmm.
five other ones, and each of them are wearing like necklaces that has a clue, and you can use the app to kind of know where's the next step and that sort of thing. So I was able to knock that out and do a few additional hikes to like lakes or like a lookout tower. But there wasn't anything in particular that stood out like being creepy or anything like that. When I went to the lookout tower, a few weeks prior to that, unfortunately, there was a guy that more or less he killed his kids.
Oh.
And he was an ex-Marine, and I'm sure he has mental illness, that sort of thing. And he currently still is on the run unless somebody finds his body. But when I was at the lookup tower, there were a couple ladies up there as well. And they were asking me if I ran across him. I'm like, honestly, I forgot all about that guy until you brought that up. But no, I didn't run across that guy
Oh
that
man.
I'm aware of, at least.
Yeah, so I was going to say that's, yeah, I mean, that right there about that story with that individual who went a little crazy with his family would be enough to keep me from there probably. But that's interesting that hadn't thought about it, and then they brought it up.
Well, I think the thing is, Washington's such a huge state.
Yeah,
What is the chances that you're going to run across those people? I mean, if you really think about it, when you go to Walmart or places like that, you probably are by people like that. You just don't know. There's nothing about that that
so true.
says stalker, serial killer, arsonist, somebody like that. It's
Yeah,
kind of like that guy up in Michigan that stabbed those people. I highly doubt those people that got stabbed by that guy looked at him and said, "Oh, that guy looks like he's going to stab me with a knife." It's just
right.
weird things like that can happen.
Yeah, it's a good point. You're right. You just never really know. You just got to be kind of alert to stuff for sure. Well, look, Brett, we talked about this a little earlier on, but I ran across this really crazy place here in Utah that really kind of freaked me out when I looked at it and learned a little bit more about it, and it kind of like scared me to death as I thought about ever being out there, and exploring. Like me, somebody who's not good at it, what if I found myself in a place like this? It'd be bad, right? And then this place is a pit, a long scar, kind of a pit from some mining that was done just outside of Dragon, Utah. And we'll be putting up some pictures here in the episode, but I saw that and I go, what the heck? Like, that's like how many people and animals are at the bottom of that pit? Because it's freaking nuts, man. Like, what are your
Right. I mean,
thoughts about
who's to
that?
say if somebody kidnapped somebody or somebody wanted to murder somebody and get rid of a body? I mean, looking at a pit like that, that's an excellent place to get rid of a body. Because,
Yeah,
I mean, I know that those pits go from anywhere from 100 feet to thousands of feet. I mean,
you're right.
those, when there was that murder that was committed in Utah by that guy out in Eureka, what was it, like 5, 6 years ago, when he killed those two, I guess you could call them teenagers, but the way he killed them was cruel and gruesome.
Hmm.
But he had I don't want to say the right idea because I don't know what that thought process is when people do that.
Yeah,
But taking their bodies and dropping them into a mine shaft, I mean, it didn't work for him. But in a place that you're talking, that I'm sure no one really ever goes out there. No one would ever find your body.
yeah, yeah. It's like the perfect dump off spot, or just accidentally.
Yeah.
I think of a story I'll tell you real quick where we go snowmobiling all the time, and I was never aware. Well, one time I ran across a story about some sinks where there's like these holes that people can fall into. Not super deep, but you can get hurt if you're on a snowmobile. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, that's crazy. I wonder where that's at. And it's exactly where I always go snowmobiling. And it was so funny because I'd gone for years and never saw these. But immediately after I recognized that story, I started seeing people falling into that. And in a few cases, we had to help pull people out of there. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I never knew about that. I'd been going out there for years. And I feel like that's this story. If you're out there on your ATV riding around or on a dirt bike and you have no idea this thing is there, yeah, then you just fall hundreds to 1,000 feet to the bottom of this thing. It's
Right.
it's
Wild.
crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, so we're in Utah. It's a beautiful state, lots of variety, tons of places to visit if you like the outdoors. Utah's a pretty vast state, and most of its population in Utah is like 3.6 million. 75% of it is right down the middle of the state, right along the I-15 corridor. Just some other details about Utah: 84,000 square miles that are free and open. I think it's the 11th biggest state. Elevations here in Utah go from Kings Peak, 13.5 thousand feet, to I think the lowest point is Beaver Dam Wash, which is around 2,300 feet. 350 miles long is Utah, and wide, 270 miles wide. And you think of that's a big place. And for most of the population to be just along the middle there, there's vast spaces of openness, which I know you love because these are the places you visit, which is all these other places that not a lot of people go to. And, I also tell people, we've got amazing four seasons here. And I feel like sometimes, depending on where you go, you get more than one season in one day, right? Like, have you been out there doing some of your hikes where it's one way and then you get to a certain place and it's snowy and it's completely different? Is that kind of some of your experiences as well?
Yeah, and a lot of that has to do with like fall. And fall, winter is a perfect example of that. So where it can be fall up here, it's still summer down south.
Yeah.
Where it could be winter-ish up here, it's still probably summer down south. Because a lot of it has to do with the elevation. A lot of it has to do with how much sunlight the plants are getting first and foremost. And what most people don't realize, so this is some good advice for those leaf peekers, they call them,
Yeah.
that want to get out there to capture the orange and yellows and those types of colors. When you're in a mountainous state and you're thinking that fall should be in middle of October, it's true in the valley, but in the mountains, it's already happening about mid-September, and it
Mm.
doesn't last long. It's about a month, give or take. So if you don't get up there and capture that, you have to wait an entire year. So fall for me is always the hardest to really get content
Mm.
because it really just depends on where you're at and the elevation and stuff like that. Like fall can happen and be gone in one day, and
Wow.
it it is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. You got to do a little kind of thinking ahead of time to find what you're looking
Yeah, for
for
sure.
sure. I remember I don't know where I was coming. I was coming from southern Utah up north one time, driving really in the middle of nowhere, coming from the east side of the state over to I-15 that way. And I remember being pretty high up, and it was summer, and there was snow up as I'm driving around up there. And I'm like, what the heck? It was, to your point, right? Like you get a completely different season depending on where you're at. So it's kind of crazy.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, like an example of that is I was where was I? I went down to the so down in southwestern Colorado. I'm going to be somewhat, but Colorado is a beautiful state, but that area in particular, Silverton, Telluride, Ouray, super gorgeous. And I went to a trail called Ice Lake, which is a beautiful lake. I went there Labor Day weekend, so it still was not technically even fall.
Right.
And it snowed while I was at that lake, and people like freaked out and they panicked and they left. And my attitude was, which is true about the Western states as a whole, like I just did all that work to get here. I am not leaving. I'm going to wait for these clouds to go away and then just be here, and no one's here. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. 20
Wow.
minutes later, it stopped snowing. The sun came out, and I was there all by myself.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. The unknowing tourists were like, we're out of here. You're like, just wait, man. It's going to be okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Brett, so this Dragon Place, Dragon, Utah, which is basically a ghost town now because it used to be a mining place late 1900s. It's on the east side of the state. And so we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording here, but I thought it was very close to Vernal. It seems like it's a little bit south of that. Like that area, not including this particular thing, but that area in general. What are your thoughts about that? Pretty barren, pretty. I mean, there's not a lot of people live out there. It's kind of out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's not like a lot of industries out there, from what I understand. You're going to be miners, people of that nature. What's interesting about that area, not that we're necessarily talking about that, but that's the area of Skinwalker Range, right? Not
Right.
necessarily where this mine pits are, but it's in that vicinity, out there, kind of destitute, I guess would be the word. But there's really not a lot out there. That it's along the Ute tribe. Yeah, the Ute tribe is out there, so
Yeah.
you definitely have that Native American influence, of course. But other than that, there's not a ton of people outside of Vernal. Vernal, there's not a lot of people, but even outside of that, you have even less people.
Right. Yeah. Numbers are so low out there. When we were looking at those pictures, how did you feel about that? Like, one, were you surprised at the size and just all of that when you saw those pictures? And what were your thoughts generally about it? As somebody who's out there, exploring sometimes, and this is not very well known that this thing's out there like that. I'm just
Well,
curious, as an explorer, what you thought.
it's it history is interesting, and you sit there and you say to yourself, man, I wish I would have loved to see this in like full production. Like, you wish you could go back in time and see how exactly they use these things and for what. Because a lot of these old mines or ghost towns, you're seeing bits and pieces of it. You don't know how it operated. Like, for example, there's a town out by even where I live called Fairfield, and there's a picture that showed that town as like a hustle and bustling town. Like, it had saloons, it had your typical old Western town. You go there now, there's a building left. Like, what was
Yeah.
and what is, you're like, you try to envision that sort of thing. So I have not seen a place like that on any of these adventures. It's funny because I feel like a person has to have the right eyes for these mines to find like this disturbed dirt. Like, I was out with a guy before, and he's like, "Oh, look, there's a mine over there. There's a mine over there." And I'm looking, I'm like,
Where?
I don't see it. But he
Yeah.
was right. Like, he could tell there was a disturbance within the earth. And sure enough, there were mines there. Now, those are mines where you're going into the mountain, under the mountain.
Hmm.
Those types of mines, they're not like that. They're out in the middle of the open. Like you said, if you're driving an ATV and you don't know, it's not like a little bump. Like, they're clearly gaps that are open. Who's to say that people have not fallen through there accidentally?
Yeah.
Being the type of person I am, I would probably try to explore it as much as I possibly could responsibly. Like, I wouldn't do something to jeopardize my life, but it's just fascinating. And the thought process that went into mine there in the first place, like, who would have even thought of something like that? I don't know. It's like history that's just kind of like unless there's signage and tribulations and stuff like that out there, or tributes, you wouldn't know. Like, you're just like, what the heck is this type of thing, and
Yeah.
whatever.
Crazy. Well, we're going to take a minute here and watch a short video on this.
Dragon, located in eastern Uintah County, Utah, was a gilsonite mining town established around 1888. Named after the dragon-shaped vein of gilsonite in nearby Dragon Canyon, it became a hub of activity in the early 1900s when the Uintah Railway reached the town in 1904. This development transformed Dragon into a regional transportation center, featuring shops, a depot, hotel, saloons, and a school. Despite early challenges in transporting the unique asphalt-like mineral, the town grew rapidly after railway infrastructure was added, including toll roads, ferries, and bridges. Dragon even established a public library with books transported free along the railway. However, the town was plagued by mining hazards, a major fire in 1908, a deadly explosion, and the destruction of the railway warehouse in 1910 all contributed to instability. In 1911, the Uintah Railway extended north to a new terminus at Watson, prompting Dragon's gradual decline. While it remained a key site for railroad operations and sheep shearing, its prominence waned as mining shifted to newer areas like Bonanza. By 1938, Dragon's mines closed, and the railway ceased operation in 1939. The town was nearly deserted by 1940. Today, only ruins mark Dragon's existence: a rubble pile from the hotel, remnants of the schoolhouse sidewalk, foundations, and a cemetery. Once the largest of the gilsonite towns, Dragon is now a ghost town, a remnant of Utah's mining and railroad past.
Man, that was very interesting. And, the biggest thing when I watch something like this, or even just think about this location, Brett, is it reminds me of just how often people just leave things. Like we've seen things before where there's abandoned structures. And I know you've showed me pictures before of like some out in the middle of nowhere structures that it's like they're there and then people leave them there. Some of these locations that you see out there, people leave furniture, everything. It's like they just picked up and decided to leave. Then you see something like this, mine structures, and I think to myself, wouldn't you think to try to do something to close that up? But no, it's just left there like that. And I think that's so crazy to me that stuff happens like that.
Especially how big that is. So you will find mines that are closed off, but the ones that aren't, explore them, because you never know when those will be closed off. Because you know how society is. It's kind of like that unfortunate event that happened to that guy several years ago, that he explored the Muddy Putty Caves. And I've never been to the Muddy Putty Caves, but I know where they're at more or less. And I guess they're really technical caves to go
Mm-hmm.
down. And long story short, he got stuck and he ended up dying there, right? So instead of closing off that cave, that canal where the guy went to, they closed off the entire thing so no one can no longer go there. And
Oh,
it's like,
yeah. Yeah.
just because somebody made a mistake, why should everyone else have to pay for that? And I get it, but at the same time, there's risks out there that people are willing to take. I mean, people jump out of airplanes all the time. I mean, there's a risk associated with that. There's an adrenaline. There's a thing of like being like one of the old pioneers or being the explorer, that they found something. Like when society or the government or whoever closes this stuff off, you're kind of robbing people of that satisfaction.
Yeah. The exploring part of this reminds me of the story that they tell you when you go up to Tippanogus Cave. You know how up there it's a really cool place. It's up pretty high, and apparently that was discovered because somebody back in the 1800s was tracking and chasing a mountain lion. I think that's what they said it was, and he follows the thing into this cave, and that's how they discovered this huge cave system, which is the Tippanogus Cave at the top of the mountain there. And I thought to myself when the rangers were explaining that when I did that walkthrough, I thought to myself, I wouldn't be following, I wouldn't climb all that way and follow an animal like that into a cave. But people were, they were explorers for sure way back then too.
Well, and one of the things is they didn't have technology either, right? They didn't have the
Right.
TV, they didn't have the internet. That was probably like the highlight of their week, because
Mm,
I'm sure you can attest to that. Like that cave in particular, it is well maintained. Like they do a good job. It's paved, like that sort of thing. That thing is freaking steep
yeah.
in that situation. The fact that that guy did that without trails or anything, maybe there was an animal trail, I don't know. But it's just like, talk about determination. I mean, that thing is steep. I'm surprised more people don't die there, to be honest with you. Like,
I know.
because of how wide that trail is. Like a little kid, that's what I'm more or less referring to.
Yeah.
It would not be hard for you to accidentally fall. There was a trail runner there not too long ago, a few years ago. She died there, but I don't think she was as high up. I think she was running. She probably honestly tripped and
Yeah.
fell. And when they found her body or her corpse, they noticed that she had a broken femur. But I don't think she was as high up as what I'm referring to, because they saw her on the trail camera coming down, and that's where they lost her after that. So,
Mm,
but you would think it would happen more often, just because mistakes happen. I mean,
yeah.
you never know.
Well, I've got a fear of heights, and it was difficult for me. In fact, I would not, and I did not bring any of my kids to there where they're teenagers. I was like, I'm not bringing you up there. I always had this fear they're going to slip and fall and hang over, and then I'm going to I have to save them, and I'm going to have a heart attack and die while I'm doing that as well.
Yeah,
But
sure, it could happen. Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. I'm curious also, in talking about some of these dangers and stuff out there, is there anything that you've run across in the state here in recent years where you were like, this is surprisingly dangerous, or this is unexpectedly not quite what I expected to see, where that, if somebody was not paying attention, it could be a bad situation. Just curious if you recall anything like that.
Honestly, when it comes to danger, I think it's always going to be elevation and steepness. I think one thing people don't factor in is wearing the right shoes, having a hiking stick, having hiking poles or whatever. Like I have a stick, I hike with a stick, and what's ironic is people have complimented this hiking stick. Like, oh, that's a really good stick.
Mm-hmm.
At the time I didn't have any stick and I didn't think anything of it. That stick has honestly been a lifesaver in many ways. That thing can help you with crossing rivers. That thing can help you with knowing where snow is and how deep the snow is. One instance was over ice. I was able to tell how thick the ice was or how brittle it was. And if it wasn't for that, I would have fallen through. It
Mm.
helps you with mud. But back to the point I was making, it helps you with those situations where you're climbing down something. Because most of the time, to get to whatever it is, you're going to have to climb up a little or you're going to have to climb down a little bit. And people overlook the steepness because it's usually the rocks that they slip on. It's kind of like when you're hiking down and you're kicking rocks. Well, those little pebbles, if you take your next step, that's going to be easily where it's going to be easy to slip on that. I mean, I've slipped on it. I would definitely say I'm definitely experienced when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I would say that's kind of a common danger is underestimating those little approaches. Like as beautiful as Mother Nature is, she can also be very harsh and very deadly,
Yeah.
especially if you make a mistake. I mean, just think of all those poor people, for example, in the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon, I believe, is the most deadly national park. And it's in this country, and it's usually because of either heat exhaustion or people falling. And I'm sure they don't put themselves in a spot where they feel like they're going to, but
Yeah.
it can happen. It
It
can
can
happen,
happen.
even to experts. I have fallen, and I didn't do anything dangerous. But things happen, right? Like the last thing you're thinking about is the grip of your shoes.
So true. Yeah, we do that all the time just in our neighborhood going, it's a little icy or wet. It's late fall and you just walk out to your car. You're not thinking about that in that situation. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey there. If you haven't already subscribed, hit the like button and please do so. It really helps a young channel like this grow and improve. Thanks, and let's get back to the show. Well, I know the answer to this for me, what I'm about to ask you, because everything is unseen to me and I don't know what I'm looking at. But in your opinion, as somebody who's out there, out and about, how detectable do you think some of these hikers are for your average, these hazards are for your average hiker? I'm not talking like this dragon one. I'm just talking like these weird mines or these just something off of a path that you may not know. Do you feel like there's dangers and people probably need to be careful going off a path? Is that what would you say that? Because that's kind of like what I would think.
Yeah, I mean, people are typically going to be the safest when they go to places that are well traveled, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason why they're well traveled. Besides the view or what you're trying to get to is probably because they're safer. Like the Forest Service or whoever does a better job of making sure you can follow directions, and there's barriers between you and a cliff and stuff like that. But when you the thing when it comes to that in this state and other states is when you continue to do it, you kind of get bored and you
Mm.
kind of want to push yourself, right? You want to go to, I always say to myself, I pride myself on being a local who doesn't do local things. And I don't necessarily want to do tourist things. The tourists come here, they see the Zions, the beautiful places like that, which I totally get. But then the locals, they don't want to really do a lot either. They don't want to really venture that far or go to risky places. On the other hand, I want to do those and then some because beauty and adventures out there if you're willing to put yourself out there. So yeah, I think the problem is that makes things a little bit more dangerous is just there's not a lot of people out there anyways. And
Hmm.
I think the problem is, especially with somebody like me being a solo hiker 95% of the time, is what do you do if you have a fall? What do you do if you need help? So, some of these people, this is not necessarily me, although I'm not saying that I wouldn't do this, are what I would call peak hikers. So they will hike to the top of peaks. It's smart for those types of people to have some kind of like a walkie talkie or some kind of a ham radio with them. I don't, because I'm not going to those places where I'm going to be so remote, but it does make sense because you never know what can happen, which is actually ironic because I'm still a little nervous about this. But you brought up earlier Kings Peak. So in about 2.5 weeks, me and my buddy, and I don't know if anyone else is going. I know it's just me and him. We're going to hike Kings Peak, and it's going to be a 3-day hike. I've never done more than a day hike. I've never camped at a place like that. A 3-day hike, it's anywhere between 25 to 30 miles. It is the highest peak in Utah. And you know what? My biggest concern is, besides all the obvious ones, it's honestly water.
Mm.
So there's lakes up there, but trusting a filtered system that I've never done before. And what do I do if I get a parasite? What do I do if I get sick? I have a companion with me, which I would never do Kings Peak or someplace out there without by myself.
Yeah.
But what happens if something happens? What happens if we get attacked by an animal? Like there's a lot of different things that could go wrong. Now, I don't typically ever hear about horror stories of that place. It's 4,000 feet of elevation, which sounds a lot, but over the course of 25 to 30 miles, I think is extremely doable. I've done 4,000 miles and 8-mile hike. I mean,
Hmm.
so I think it's going to be a gradual thing, but I'm kind of nervous. I'm not going to lie about this. I've never done something like this, and
Yeah.
neither has he.
A true adventure.
I'm sure even in a future podcast, I could possibly have stories from this place. And
Yeah.
we're talking about the High Uinta Mountains. The High Uinta Mountains. I was actually there this past weekend. Is known as the Bermuda Triangle of Utah, a
Hmm.
creepy part of Utah that also ties into the Skinwalker Ranch. Skinwalker Ranch is part of it, not all of it, of course.
Yeah.
Just weird energies and vibes and stuff like that. So the fact that we're purposely going to put ourselves out there for 3 days. See, I initially thought
Mm.
this was a day hike, and then when he gave me the time frame, which is Derek Hatch, by the way, in case you're
Oh, okay.
wondering,
Derek. Yeah.
um, I'm just like, at the time, I'm like, I don't know if I have the time, and now after talking with you, I definitely have more time.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I mean, if you're going to do it, here's an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, be safe, my friend. Yeah, that's going to be cool. I do want to hear about it when you get back, how
Sure,
that all
sure.
goes. You know, with with spots out there that are a little dangerous, do you find that any effort is made to mark them or highlight them? Or my opinion is, it seems like that's not the case because I've run
It,
into little things on some real basic things I've done where I go, that looks dangerous, and there's no clue that that's dangerous. Anyway,
yeah,
what do you think?
I think it really just, I think it just comes down to how much of a desirable place it is. It's like Angel's Landing, for example, in Zion's National Park. It's it's funny because I've seen YouTubers shoot that,
Mm-hmm.
and they make it look like it's so scary. And it is, but it's really not. So
Mm.
there's chains there to help you with that. Like the Park Service knows that it could be dangerous and hazardous, but at least there's chains. At least there's that kind of thing. But just imagine before that stuff was there, people were out there still doing it, right? So I
True.
think a lot of it just depends on how trafficked is a place and how it's going to help the local economy. If it's
Mm.
going to help the local economy, there's going to be motivation because there's money behind that. So this is the point in case. Canaryville Falls, which is down, it's just south of Cedar City. I think it's just south of Cedar City. There's a waterfall there that people pay Oh, I think it's like a permit for like 12 or $15. But people go there from all across the world. Like it's a
Hmm.
desirable place, which totally makes sense if you ever go there. So at the time, when you got to the waterfall, there was a log and there was these steps that you could climb up it, right? And there was a kind of a rope chain thing to help people up. Well, apparently there was a flash flood there, and that log went bye bye. It took the log away. So what happened was the popularity of that hike nosedived. And so what Canaryville, the town said, well, we need that local revenue to come in here. So we're going to have to come up with something. And so what they did was they took a helicopter and they flew in this staircase, like this metal staircase. And now the metal staircase is there to make it a lot safer and less likely for something to happen because again, they're motivated by money, right? And so
Hmm.
it's better, it's safer, but they need to keep that coming in because without that, people they didn't even want to attempt it, which I totally understand.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, so it's the local area with tourism sometimes that are the drivers of trying to mark them or provide some safety there for them.
Oh,
I
for
was gonna.
sure. What's funny in some of these national parks, I mean, you do pay money to get into a national park, whether you have the America Beautiful Pass or not. You're still technically spending money to get in there. There's a lot of trails in there that are not well marked, especially like in southern Utah. All you have to rely on are cairns, and what cairns are essentially rocks that people stack on top of each other, but they kind of serve as like a sign, kind of. So if
Hmm,
you don't have those, and if you don't have, sometimes you'll see people will paint rocks. If you don't see those, it is so easy to get lost because everything looks exactly the same. So these
right.
are national parks that people pay to get into. Never mind national forests, never mind BLMs, our Bureau of Land Management, there's going to be even a less motivation to make those places safe for people.
Well, that goes right down what my next question was going to be. I think you've answered it, which is should should the government be tracking these abandoned spots, places, dangerous locations, and to seal them down or to mark them in some way? And it sounds like maybe is the answer,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think it's maybe. I see it, but I don't. I mean, again, you want people to go there. You don't want people to go to a place and be disappointed. You want people to go there and have a thrill, right? Like down in this place is south of Price, Utah. Something San Rafael. That's what it's called, San
Mm,
Rafael. So they have these tunnels down there that the U.S. government used for something at one point. I don't exactly remember what they are, right? And so they barred them off, so you can't get in there. So from a distance, you're going to be already disappointed. But if you have a little bit of hope and belief and you go up to those fences, you realize it's not what it appears to be. So you can actually open them yourself and crawl
mm,
and climb into those tunnels. They're not scary or anything like that, but it's still cool. It's still a cool little adventure. Like the
yeah.
ones down there, perfect for like a family with like kids or whatever. Like I wouldn't say anything poses danger at all. But if you don't know better, you would just assume that that's closed off and what's the point? But lo and behold, you can actually pull that stuff out yourself and go in there. So maybe that's part of the solution where maybe you close off areas, but for the person who gets there and realizes actually there's a way to get in there just by
Hmm.
opening the gate. It's not opening the gate like this. Literally, you got to slide like the bars over, but they pop off. So
Wow. Yeah. I would have seen that and just stopped right there.
yeah, yeah.
And
Honestly,
probably
and when
most
I
people
saw
do.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, when I saw it, I was like, well, what's the point? But I don't know. For some reason, like I'm gonna go up to it and I'm like, wait a second, maybe I can actually because I saw footprints in there. I'm like, how
Mm,
are there footprints in there? There's a gate. Can I actually open this gate? And then yeah, I
interesting.
could.
Yeah. Well, as we talk about all this, I do like to leave this kind of information for people. So my question to you is, what would you say to casual hikers, adventurers who might want to consider exploring areas? Maybe the Dragon area, Dragon, Utah, but other areas that could have dangers associated. What are your suggestions for people to, to stay safe?
So I would do it, first of all. But what's important is to either go with people or to let people know where you are. If you don't have one of those radios, especially, because let's be honest, I tell people where I'm at, but what does that mean? Like, oh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
in such and such location. It gives you a general idea of where you are, but not exactly where you are. So it's better than nothing. So yeah, if you're going to go in any place, it's kind of like I'm going to tell somebody I'm going to Kings Peak. Well, what does that mean? Well, he's somewhere along 25 to 30 miles, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a large area to search just in case of anything, right? So if you could be more exact and let loved ones know or let friends know or whoever it is, the more people that are aware, the better.
Yeah.
Because you never know what can happen. I mean, I have never had to, and I'm not saying I want to have one of these encounters. I've encountered animals, but I've never had one where I had to like fight off an animal or anything like that. Like I try to be respectful and give it space, but capture it too because it's like, oh, this is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, I ran across a moose this past weekend. Right, it was a
Hmm.
bull moose, big boy, and I knew that and I respected that. And I wasn't, but at the same time, I love capture and proof and documentation because if not, I would say I just saw a moose.
Yeah.
Well, but people want to see that you actually capture the moose. So do it in a way where you're going to give the animal space where you're not going to jeopardize that they're going to try to attack you. And that's exactly what I did. I always had eyes on him, making sure he wasn't like annoyed or whatever. And yeah, because it's still a beautiful animal, but it's like where I was hiking last night. I made a mistake. Like I didn't bring my headlamp with me. And I could see fine, but thinking about it, what would have happened if I had to deal with a mountain lion or something like that? Like I I typically carry bear spray with me. I've never had to use it for that, and I don't want to use it for that. But again, like I didn't think I was going to be there as late as I did, and I was fine. But it's just like little things like that can happen where you could be up the creek.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like a little checklist for people might be wise to just, you know, check these things off and say, I better grab these things before I head out there.
Oh, for sure. Like have the Boy Scout approach of always being prepared. Like it's like, for example, I have a gun, and do I always bring the gun with me? No, very rarely do I bring the gun. Why do I not bring the gun? Because I've never had to use a gun. But the gun adds weight to your pack, and I kind of view it as an unnecessary weight, which it
Mm-hmm.
honestly is. That's why I have bear spray because bear spray is a lot lighter than that. And it may not sound like that big of a deal, but when you're going up high in elevation for miles, it's just like water. That's what my concern is going to that peak is water because I'm like the Timpanogos cave you talked about. There's an actual Timpanogos peak that's not there. It's in another area. I mean, I took up so many water bottles and it was not fun. Like I
Yeah.
could control how much my pack weighed by consuming water, but the problem is if I drink too fast, now I have no water. So you have to like balance that out. But something like this, I'm not going to be able to take water with me. I mean, I'm going to be gone
Mm-hmm.
for 3 days. I think the average human is supposed to, I could be wrong, but is supposed to consume a minimum of 2 liters per day. Well, that's 6 liters in a pack. I don't even think I have space in my pack for something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be so much weight too.
Right. Right.
Crazy. Well, look, this has been great. Brett, thanks so much for sharing some of your thoughts on this. And best of luck to you guys on this trip coming up for you, this long trip. And tell Derek that I said, hey, good luck, guys, as well. And for all of you out there, there you go, everybody. We're talking about exploring, checking things out. And, in this area around Dragon, if you're find yourself hiking or an ATV or a bike or motorbike out there, you need to be careful. So get familiar with what's out there, whether it's beautiful or barren. Make sure that you respect it, like Brett has said, and all the dangers that could be there. Well, that's it for us today. Thanks again for being on here today, Brett. And thank you all for listening, and we'll catch up next time. If you enjoy all the variety of topics we look at on this show, do us a favor and subscribe. And hit the like button. It actually does a lot to help our episodes with those interesting YouTube algorithms. Oh, and don't forget, there's a lot of strange and unexpected in our reality. So always keep your eyes, ears, and minds open. And until next time, stay safe.
Thank you for listening to High Strangeness. This was a glance at some of the strange that exists in our reality.